classes. I've loved working with Gabriel the last couple of years, and then within the Denver library system. So as well, for so many places going back online, I'm going to be doing a couple Zoom classes for the library. In fact, in this next 2 weeks, this coming Saturday and the Saturday after. So as well, maybe I can even pass that on to Gabriel for your participants as well at Denver Housing Authority, Gabriel, because again, they're free classes, and I hope I can impart a lot of what I know to you. I apologize if some of it seems kind of rudimentary, but sometimes it's the simplest ideas that are often forgotten. So summer soups, a couple different ways. We're going to do 2 chilled soups and then a warm soup, but I've got some techniques is really what I'm more interested in showing you, because everyone's tastes are just a little different. So bear in mind as I go through this, I'm going to talk about some things that can be substituted, that can work as well, how to store it, how to maybe substitute, things like that. So unless it's real pertinent, I will answer questions at the end of every recipe. The first recipe is a gazpacho, and gazpacho, been around forever and ever, but with really, I don't know how people's gardens are going, but I can already see I'm going to have a good bumper crop of tomatoes this year, as well as the farmers markets. I've got this last weekend, great produce is already coming. So this particular recipe, it starts out with just chopped tomatoes, canned tomato juice. You've got cucumber, green pepper, onion. I'm going to talk about that, celery, garlic, a couple kinds of vinegar, and hot sauce. It doesn't take too long to put together. A couple things I want to point out as this does look clear. We'll see how we can do this, get a good shot of my stomach. Otherwise, I'm going to see if we could do this. One of the things about tomatoes, so keep in mind on this recipe, I'm using Romas today. Any garden will do. Romas, because you need so many, this is calling out for 1.5 pounds. I shouldn't say this. I halved this recipe, so I halved it. You could have it again. It makes a lot, but you can also double it because it sits so well in your refrigerator. Keep in mind that's something that if you're going to go to the hassle of making it, go ahead and do that. So I'm using tomatoes on this. I'm using actually, just the knife I'm using is actually a cheese knife, just because I like the serration on it. But really what you want to do, you want to always cut tomatoes with a serrated knife, only because, as everyone knows, you just don't get as far. You're going to try to break the skin without something that's not serrated. In this case, I'm just going to kind of get it to where I can get a solid edge on it. And this one is just coarsely chunked tomatoes. That's all I'm going to do on this one. And it doesn't have to be, again, they're going to kind of break down a little bit. So we're not looking for uniform slices on this one, but since it is a little bit of a soup, what I'd say is you don't want them too big, but neither do you want it too small. If you wanted to make gazpacho in the winter, you can use canned tomatoes. It's going to have a little bit different texture, but again, Romas are available so year round. I think this is just a really good standard recipe to have. One of the other things I love using are flexible cutting boards, namely because icky old soupy tomatoes, and I'm just putting this in the group that we have, just less, the ability to pick it up and move it is a lot easier. Okay, the second thing it's calling for is just canned tomato juice. So in this case, I'm just using good old Kroger's. I've got 1 cup, hold on. I think I put everything out and then I forget. So we're using 16 ounces is adding to this. Okay. The next thing it's calling for is peeled cucumber. Cucumber that I'm going to use for this, I really always like English cucumbers. Typically, they are going to be wrapped in plastic, and then you're going to peel that back. I would give them a rinse anyway. But the beauty of English cucumber is that you can eat the peel because they're not so coarse. But if you don't like that much peel, just give them a little bit of a peel maybe ahead of time. And in this case, nothing fancy. I'll use a bigger knife here. We're gonna, once again, just coarsely chop these. I'll say something else I do. I don't know how many people like to compost with what they have. I always keep in my kitchen, let me see if I can show you this, a compost bucket. Okay, here's my bucket. These are the meat bags that I get at Costco. Okay, I fill this bucket, keep it under my sink. I've never had it smell. I'm using mostly just vegetable peeling, but I keep it under there. When I'm done with that, I then take that, put a zip tie on it, and stick it in the freezer. What that's doing is it's starting the decomposition of your vegetables, and then I dump it in my compost pile. And what's so nice, I can turn compost over real quickly in the summer, specifically because of this. So we have our cucumber, and this one, a cup of coarsely chopped is just I'm just doing this on what we've got here, so about a cup there. Green pepper, the same idea. Green pepper's nice. You could use different peppers here. I like the flavor of green pepper though the best. And again, you've got so much color going on here. You don't need to worry about the pretty colors necessarily. I like to use, oftentimes I like to use sweeter pepper, trying to impart a little bit more color. I don't want as big, again, the recipe is calling out for a chopped green pepper, not coarsely chopped, but bear in mind, as big as you're comfortable eating raw green pepper. It's a really nice part of this, but if you're not a pepper person, you can leave it out. The next thing it's calling out for is a Vidalia onion. Sweet onions are so nice in a raw format. Obviously, since this soup is raw. The thing I like, the thing that you're going to notice, so as you keep in mind, here's a regular onion, here's a sweet onion. Sometimes they even look pretty close to regular onion, but the sweet onion usually will have some sort of sticker. They're sometimes almost even double the cost, but again, we're going into here. They will have some sort of a demarcation. As much as I love to cook, I love gadgets. For gadgets in the kitchen. Okay, this one has the skinny little more placed blades, and this one a little bit thicker. Here's why I love onions with a mandolin. Because onions, that as you're doing it, I'm wanting this, the recipe is calling out for finely chopped onion. So this was the other half of the sweet onion that I've actually chopped. What I'll often do is I'll even leave maybe even this top part or the root sitting on this so it can be my handle. But mandolins can be notoriously dangerous, so maybe our best bet is to leave your concentric. You've got a mandolin that's going to go across it. And what that's doing is it's kind of already starting to finely chop your onion. It's not perfect, but it's going to be, typically you're going to get, if you are doing a lot of onion, you're going to get a lot of really fine dice, already diced for you. And then always the side ones will be in the way. But I love a mandolin for people that as you're getting older or dexterity is a problem. Here's another chopping tool that I love. This one happens to be Pampered Chef. I think Xylus makes one. A couple of different companies, or again, if you're cooking with kids, I want to just show you this. You don't want sharp knives around kids, but you want to get them in the kitchen. So hold on one second. Oh, where's my compost again? So this chopper, the way it works is you're just going to push it down every time it comes up. It's moving a different direction. And in this case, where we had, we'll just use a regular red onion. Maybe you can see this a little bit better. Same could happen with your green pepper, so I'm just going to show you this. Let's just say we wanted to do green pepper at the same time, or cooking this with some kids, or, you know, even a teenager. I'm trying to get them to learn how to cook, but chopping may not be their skill set. So it chops it, then you can just determine how much is it chopped more finely. And then the same could go for your green pepper. Tools, again, it's not necessarily one that you would necessarily want to just go out and purchase, but I'm a big fan of checking out what Goodwill has in their kitchen department. And I see these things all the time of someone who bought one and never maybe took it, made it for good use. So if you can buy one for a couple of dollars, try it out at home, and then if you want one, this is the way to do it. But this Borner mandolin is something I probably use every single day. It goes through the dishwasher, an even better aspect of that. I was talking to Rebecca earlier about Cutco knives. I love Cutco, Rebecca, because they're dishwasher safe. And I'm a lazy cook as much as I love to cook. So we've got in this particular recipe, then I'm doing this again, putting everything. There's my tomatoes. I had already cut. There's my sweet onion that was diced. A little better. Just see. There's our celery. Something about celery that, you know, again, I always have a head in my refrigerator, but I notice sometimes I might only need I might need a half a cup of celery, and I don't want a whole head of celery, whole stalk of celery sitting in my fridge. It's the same price at the grocery store. At King's, it's $1.29 a pound. So you could buy, in this case, for half a cup, you could probably buy 2 or maybe 3 stalks for, you know, it's going to be 49 cents. You have less waste. You're going to use it all. And I think it's just a good way sometimes in our effort to not be wasteful. It's just that not to buy too much. So that's my thought on celery. In this case, this is also using garlic cloves. A good garlic press to me is a godsend in the kitchen as well. I've always liked these big heavy garlic presses because you can usually just put them, paper and everything, right into the garlic press. And then you pop out the paper. As well, if you don't have that, then just crush your garlic. Not enough room in my little kitchen. Just give it a nice little punch to open it. And you can, at this point, then just finely mince it. But I like a garlic press if I'm doing a lot. I don't tend to like garlic that comes in a jar because it loses its potency. But if you're using a lot, that may be another option for you. Tablespoon of olive oil. And then this is calling for 3 tablespoons of vinegar. I've made this recipe for years now, and what I've liked about it is it says either one kind or 3 different kinds. In this case, I'm going to use cider vinegar, and I think these might be coming backwards to you, a balsamic, but this is a Trader Joe's white balsamic. It's a white wine, but it's a balsamic, and then a rice vinegar. And I like that. There's just something about this. A dark balsamic works as well. So we're just going to use a tablespoon of each of these. But the idea being, you don't necessarily have to go out and buy special vinegar for this. I like the 3 different kinds. It imparts just kind of a nice flavor. Nothing is too strong here. Okay, there's our 3 vinegars. half a teaspoon of salt, and pepper. I'm going to mention something about salt. I love kosher salt. I used to be able to get something called Diamond Crystal kosher salt, which is about half the salinity of Morton's kosher salt. So if a recipe calls for salt, and this recipe is calling for half a teaspoon, you would typically double that amount using kosher. But every salt is a little bit different. So what I would say, this is a new one that Costco is carrying. It's a kosher salt, but it's stronger than what Diamond kosher salt was. Always try your salt first. You can always add more. In this case, I'm just going to add a half a teaspoon. But if you need a little bit more, kosher typically is half or 1.5 or at least another, excuse me, if it's calling for 1 teaspoon, it would call for 2. Or in this case, it might be a teaspoon and a half. You're adding a little bit more salt to get that same impact of flavor. And then pepper. Okay, so that's your gazpacho. And this is just really it's just so refreshing. There's something about it that's just so nice. I will say this as well. You may be familiar with a salad called a panzanella. Panzanella salad typically is just the way that people used old bread. In the Middle Eastern culture, they have something called fattoush, which again, they would use old pitas. So I've found that sometimes even some nice croutons in a gazpacho is very nice, and be them bagged. But with everyone making sourdough over this last little stay at home that we've all experienced, if I saw one recipe for sourdough, I saw 1,000. People had a lot of sourdough. Take those pieces of bread, chop them up, coarsely chop them up, dry them out, put them in olive oil, throw a little garlic on them. You'll have your own croutons, but you could also throw them into this soup for a really nice lunch. Okay, question? Anybody? It was kind of basic.
Monica, okay, so we're 1 soup down. I know we have 2 to go in a little over a half hour.
Yes,
Rebecca had asked one question.
Right.
Where can we learn good and safe knife skills?
So, you know, the crazy part is, I don't know, I love, there were plenty of classes at different cooking stores. Sir Latab had them. Williams-Sonoma had them. I don't know that they've reinstated those, but I do think that's a worthwhile class to take on just to make sure you have hands-on. The best thing about knives, I think key and foremost is that they have to be sharp to begin with. So you can have the best knife skills, and without sharp knives, you really do yourself, you're kind of really behind the 8 ball again. So knife skills are kind of imparted or kind of go hand in hand with having good sharp knives. And I'd say there is a place down on, I believe it's Calumet, almost to Alameda, called the Knife Guys. And it's a little cooking kitchen store. And I do remember them offering knife classes as well. I think that's the best, but in this time of Zoom, not Zoom, but video as well.
Monica, you cut off on my end just
Okay.
at the end there.
Okay.
But I think I heard, you know, videos, you know, definitely, I'm sure on YouTube there's a lot of cooking related videos and some related to knife skills as well. Linda asks, can you freeze the gazpacho?
Technically, no. The reason being that you have all raw vegetables. So if you put them in the freezer, just as I was saying in my compote with even my scraps, what that does is it, with that high amount of water content, it freezes the vegetables once it comes out and thaws. So it's not impossible. I mean, there's a lot of things. The whole idea with gazpacho is that it is just a fresh soup.
Okay. It was a little spotty there too. I think we heard the gist of it. Probably not best to freeze the gazpacho. Monica, where would you suggest buying your veggie cutting board and new chopper?
Okay. Chopper, that happens to be a pampered chef. Choppers, though, like I say, are available Bed Bath & Beyond, Target, all kinds of places. It's just that same kind of chopper mechanism is available in a couple of retailers just locally, and then Amazon, of course. Even for a while, so again, these boards, that was a set of 4 I got at Bed Bath & Beyond. I like it. It's a little bit heavier, and it's got a little bit of a grip. It's kind of got a rubberized surface on the back. But I've even used, when I was kind of between mats, I used those plastic placemats. You know, they're almost considered like, they're not so much disposable. But again, the whole idea is you don't want to ruin your countertop. But the flexibility of them is really the key part. And they will get nasty. They don't last. They say you can put them in the dishwasher. I never do. But I wouldn't invest a whole lot in them. And so you'll see the variation in prices when you go to check them out.
Awesome. Thank you, Monica.
Okay.
Hey, if there are no other questions, I think we're ready for our next soup.
Okay. As we clip through this one, as important as this recipe is, I want to bring up something. As I was mentioning, diced sweet onion again. So I already have that. Let me do this real quick. Oh, silly me, I forgot to put our dash of hot sauce in the gazpacho. Again, Tabasco, I'm just using Cholula. You could do, if you didn't have hot sauce, do a pinch of cayenne. That little bit of heat without it being hot is so important in this soup. I think it actually, again, it's a nice ingredient that if you have it, should be added. In this particular soup, we've got sweet onion. Again, I'm going to go back and say where you need to substitute. So if all you have is regular onions, that's fine. The sweet, again, in a chilled soup is a little bit nicer. But again, this one, if you look in the directions of this one, it's being cooked. So the sweet isn't as critical as it would be if this were like a gazpacho where it's a cold soup and you don't want that real intensity of an onion flavor. I would say substitute either. Diced fennel. Fennel is, got a guy right here. Fennel can be kind of a pricey ingredient. So if you've seen them before at the grocery store, what I think this ended up coming to $2.50 for one ingredient. Maybe something that, again, it's a lovely flavor to this. You're not going to get a direct flavor comparison, but you could substitute celery in this case for this. But I really love fennel. I love it raw in salads. The fronds at the top here are usually mostly used for decoration. But I will tell you this, the best place I've ever found to buy fennel, and I use it a lot, is Trader Joe's. You can buy a 2-pack of large heads for, I think it's maybe $2.50. They're bigger than this, and it's a great way to just kind of introduce you to fennel. As well, they're already in packages. Fennel has a long shelf life. It's kind of like celery. It'll stay in your fridge for a long time. But I often find, and it's a kind of a heavy one, that I have to remove that first layer. Many people know this. If you are a big cook and you like to save things, you could keep these parts, not so much the fronds, but this, cleaning it up a little bit, throw it in the freezer for vegetable stock later on. But that's about where I'm starting. Fennel on this one as well. I will say something about my mandolin. The mandolin is great for things that are not this dense. I would love to use this on a mandolin, but a mandolin is a piece of equipment that, as much as I love it, can be very dangerous. Anything that's too hard doesn't go through it well. I can do French fries on a mandolin. I can't do sweet potato French fries on a mandolin because the potato is so much denser. So in this case, if I'm going to use fennel, I'm just going to chop it by hand. Seems to be the best way. So again, you've got your concentric circles. You're just going to, and in this case, it's talking about this being diced, not critical that it be perfect by any stretch because you're going to ultimately puree the soup. Okay, so in this case, we've got a half a cup of diced. Okay, so we've got the sweet onion, we've got garlic, on olive oil. Okay, so I'm gonna get this one started. Pardon me for 1 second. All right. Can I mention something really quickly?
Of course.
Okay. In the background, one of the reasons my internet connection may be a little weak is that my husband and my son are both working from home. I love to cook. I love to try new recipes for my family, and I have a family that is, they are the kings of junk food. So in the background, as I'm sitting here making delicious soup, someone I do believe went off to Taco Bell for lunch. Just saying, just doesn't matter. Okay, in this recipe, we're going to saute the onion, fennel, and the garlic. So again, pressure garlic cloves. Here's our onion, it's already chopped, and I'm just going to get this one going. You've got diced zucchini. Zucchini is a great one, again, to do on the mandolin. And if I could do a real quick one on that. Doesn't have to be a fine dice. I just want to show you the difference of this one. Again, using a mandolin with caution, but I'm not going to run it to the end. It's just going to give me bigger strips of it. I'm only showing you this because so many times if you're doing a real pretty salad and you want things that are a little bit more even, I'll do something, I'll even start it with the mandolin and then do some coarse dicing beyond that. But that's where this came in. Okay, so we've got the onion, fennel, and the garlic in olive oil. Here's my olive oil. Okay, I like using an olive oil with just a little sprout in there because you're a good tablespoon, so you're not having to measure everything. Shoot, let's get this guy out of the way. This is just going to saute together till it's aromatic, meaning till it has some fragrance. Here's my garlic press again. It's coming. Hold on. Let's get the garlic. We have some already done here. That's what we're going to just do.
What kind of are you making now?
Now we're making the chilled zucchini soup.
Chilled zucchini. Thank you.
Wanted something with the zucchini. Yes, I wanted something that was using zucchini. You really believe you're a gardener? Okay, as I'm also showing you this, you see how this is kind of coarse. Again, this soup is going to be pureed, so it's not critical that it be really finely minced. In this case, it's even saying that it only needs to be sliced. I've got 1, 2, 3. Zucchini is one of those great vegetables, though, that I think you will, if you've gardened it all, you'll have plenty in your garden, or you'll have neighbors that'll give it to you. But it's actually kind of nice. This is a pretty refreshing soup. So we're just going to saute that. I didn't hear that going. Okay, so we're going to add the zucchini. Once this is done, this is about 5 minutes. Add vegetable broth and water. Gabriel, can you hear me okay with this cooking?
Yes.
Okay.
On my end,
I want to point out something on vegetable broth. A lot of cooks are more familiar with this, but if you aren't, this is something called Better Than Bouillon. I've got one more. Hold on. These are 3 sizes you can get this product. What I love about Better Beyond is that it is a paste. It's always accessible to you in your refrigerator. So it'll, in this case, I happen to have a beef. There was a mushroom base. Here's a roasted garlic base. You just are going to take a teaspoon, I think it's 1 teaspoon to 8 ounces of water. And I always like having this. I know some people are real diehard Swanson's chicken fans, or even if you make your own, but this always is available to you as you cook. I use it often even if I'm making gravy or something like that to impart a little bit better flavor if I'm making a stew. Costco size, King Super size, maybe Whole Foods size, because you can get them in different variations. This, if you use a lot, it's by far the best bargain, but it will stay in your refrigerator for months at a time. If you even get on their website, they have so many different varieties of this. It's kind of lovely that they have a lot of flavors available. Okay, so we're adding the zucchini for 3 minutes. Oh, that's it. Here's the other thing on how you can be so lazy with this product. If I wanted to keep this, of course, all vegetarian, I could use vegetable broth or chicken broth or this, the roasted garlic, which I think I'm going to try on this one. Add your liquid and then add your teaspoon directly to your product. You don't have to break it down. I happened to do that for our next recipe where I already condensed it and made the broth ahead of time, but you don't need to. So again, it's something that's just quick. In this case, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of this. Directly to my product, to my soup.
When you say 2 teaspoons of what is this you're speaking of?
And I apologize. This is when I'm using the Better Than bouillon.
Got it.
So when it's calling for the broth, I'm just saying you don't have to pre-mix it, I guess is my point. I'm just going to let that go a little bit, and I'm going to kind of push that to the side. I'm going to talk about the rest of this as it cooks. Okay. This is going to cook about 15 minutes, and then hopefully before you leave, I'm going to just do the quick thing on the hand blender on how that works. Any other questions on zucchini soup?
Do you have an additional cup of water added then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're going to have a total of 3 cups.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You know, and I apologize as I even look at some of these recipes. I'll be going through them and I'm thinking, like, what would 3 cups of broth not hurt you? I mean, if you have it, use it. If not, but yeah, I want these recipes to be a little more simplified instead of, as I cut and paste them even, I had to laugh. You get down later in the recipe and it says add lemon juice. I'm like, where's the lemon juice in the recipe? It's not there. So interesting how that works. This recipe also calls, if you see it down at the bottom, it calls for lemon zest. If you're not familiar with a microplane or something like it, it's one of these with these really tiny, tiny blades on them. And what I love about a microplane is just the very thing you're going to do with it, which is you're going to zest. You just want, you can see where I did it on this already, but you don't want to ever get to the yellow. If you don't have a microplane and something calls for zest, you can actually use, you know, like your vegetable peeler. You see how much more white might get on there. That's the real bitter part. It's not a game changer. You can do that and then finally mince that. But what wine does is allows you to get that super, super, super fine zest off of it. You will get not quite a tablespoon of zest per lemon. And a big orange, generally about a tablespoon. This might give you 2 teaspoons on an average size lemon. The other thing about lemon juice that I think is something I like, in my cache of, I was looking for my lemon zest to see it, so we'll pass on that. A lemon zester, I'll show you that in just a minute. To bring the juice, you know, you can always just do a squeeze, but a zester will allow you to get all the juice out from the bottom. But I'm going to show you something that I prefer even above that. You'd think I was doing a plug for Costco, and I'm really not. But they do have some great ingredients that I find I use a lot of. And this comes in a 2-pack. So especially if you're a smaller kitchen, find someone that can buy the 2-pack with you. This is organic lemon. This is about 40 lemons, and depending on the time of year, lemons can be $1 a piece. So I like this, and something calling for a teaspoon of lemon juice. Just give it a swirl. Keeps in your refrigerator. Usually a couple of months, not a problem. But I make lemon curd out of this if I'm making lemonade. Makes a lovely lemonade, fresh lemonade. So this is a great product. I love fresh lemons. Of course, you don't get the zest with juice, but it's a really great thing to have in your pantry, because I find more and more recipes will add that splash. They'll say, you know, my time and splash of acid and really enhances many recipes. Please don't leave it out if you have access to lemons. Okay, so we're just gonna let this cook now. And let me get.
Monica, we'll have just about 15 minutes.
Okay, we're good. We'll just let this cook while we're doing that. So this particular recipe, so as you read through it, you're going to cook until the vegetables are tender. You can process it, but keep this in mind. Next to soups, this is also something, if you kept your vegetables small and you didn't want to blend this could also be a very nice vegetable soup. However, when you start to add the buttermilk and the vinegar and the lemon zest, that's where it lends itself to becoming a cold soup. Okay, so the vegetable soup by itself with the onions and the fennel and the vegetable soup to have. On this one. Okay, the last one is a corn soup. Talk about really quickly on corn. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm gonna just get 3 things out of the way here. The one thing I will say about my husband and my sons is they're really great kitchen cleaners. Even though they don't partake in my food, they're very gracious and they clean for me, and I'm spoiled by that. Get this out of the way. As I understand it, Colorado's peach crop is not coming through. I'm sure people have heard that as well. And I haven't seen corn. Even July 4th didn't have corn on sale, but I'm anticipating that we will. When you buy corn, one of the things they talk about it as well is ideally, and I've noticed actually stores don't even want it, that for the most part, feel the corn as far as it's just, you know, its sturdiness, that you rarely really will get a corn where it's been eaten out or there will be bugs in it. Homegrown, you might have more of that issue, but typically the supermarket corn is overall a pretty good universal product. So I find that when they even have the corn, silk on the ends, I often just cut that off, but I leave it intact in my refrigerator because it's going to stay fresher longer. Unless I'm going to eat it that night for dinner, that's the only time I've really needed to peel it in the grocery store. But you've gone ahead and peeled it, or you get it home and it's time to peel. Again, this is great fodder for your compost if you're doing that. But the pain in the butt of corn, fresh corn, is the ways to deal with this. One of them, they said a rubber glove, and I've done it both ways, is because it's giving you a little bit more grip, okay? And if you just kind of back and forth, you can kind of see where it'll just kind of start bunching up. But I've even
How many ears of corn do you need for the soup?
This soup is calling out for 3 fresh ears of corn, or in this case as well, you can use frozen or canned. So a kind of a year-round recipe. I like something that has these little bit of roughness, I guess you could say, on more of a regular, like a Playtex glove. and you'll have more success getting off the silk. Not perfect. The last but not least is to take it over a gas flame and just very gently go over it, not to cook it, but just to char those little, let's see, we got a flame going here. Let's see if we can give you an idea of this. And it'll take, then you can just rinse it under the water, because there's nothing worse, I think. I love fresh corn, but I don't like the silk. So if you can kind of see, that's one other way to take it off, okay? But in this recipe, when it's calling for shucking corn or getting it off the cob, found this little gizmo at Bed Bath & Beyond, and I'm thinking this is the way to do it. You start about you put it on the solid end, you start about an inch below, and it just takes it down. Okay, but you may not want to invest. I think this was maybe a $10 item, $9.99. The other one that I have used for years and I think works actually as good, if not better, is a grapefruit knife. Same idea. And you probably already have it in your fridge. It's just that it's a little more curved. On any corn that you're trying to shuck, you always want to try to get it as close to the cob as you can. So this one's not a bad way to go. But I'd always say still do it in a large bowl, because otherwise, and even here, you'll get it everywhere but where you don't need it. Okay, so that's the idea of shucking or getting kernels off the cob. Okay, so got the summer corn soup going. Okay, so this one is calling for olive oil. Again, finely chopped onion. Here's another trick that I like for onions. Beginning of the pandemic, I was sure they were going to be out of everything. Go ahead, just say I'm as silly as every person that was cleaning out for toilet paper. Oh, I didn't clean out for toilet paper. I bought 50 pounds of onions. I know, it's ridiculous, but I use a lot of onions. Because what I did is I did everything I'm showing you with the mandolin. I put on some safety goggles so that my eyes wouldn't pop out, and I chopped onions. I lay them on a cookie sheet, just a good old regular cookie sheet. Let them freeze, and then put them in individual bags. And I'd usually double bag them, and this one's been out for a minute, but here's a recipe that I'm thinking, I want to put this together real quickly, and I don't have much time. I'm not going to fool with fresh corn, but I can sure use frozen corn. A potato is going to be nothing. I can peel it or otherwise. But the onion, again, can take me maybe an extra 5 minutes. I'm just going to open it up, take out a half a cup of onion, and freeze it back up. And I got to tell you how many times I do this for green peppers when they're on sale, for red and yellow peppers. Here's my onions. Goes back in my freezer, and I always have chopped onions available. You can buy these. King's has them in their vegetable aisle, but when onions can be 29 cents a pound as opposed to $1 a pound, and I can get a few extra, I'll put them in my freezer. Again, this is for a cooked item. This would not be for what you'd want for gazpacho, because they'd be all mushy. But for anything that's cooked, it's going to break down anyway. Okay, so here we go. We've got olive oil, onion, so I've got my hand going on this as well. Let me grab that. So make sure the zucchini soup's going. I'm only doing this in a low one just so I was hoping that we could have a little bit better view, but typically when you're cooking soups, you would want a taller pot. This has got a pretty big surface space though, so I'm pretty safe on this. Once again, 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm not necessarily going to measure it if I don't have to. Again, if I'm going to use the, if I just have a tip on these, 1, 2, 3. I love the fact that they found out that olive oil is actually, that oil and butter are actually better for you than what they once thought. I'm a little more generous with my pores than I used to be. I'm going to get my oil hot. hot enough. There's a little bit of, in this case, it's medium heat. And as I say this, I'm going to kind of contradict myself. Some recipes will call for you heating the oil before you add your onions and garlic. Typically, and this is even over a medium heat, what you want to do is add it before the oil gets hot because you don't want it to burn. And that's what will happen if your oil is too hot and you add the aromatics that are going to add so much flavor to your soup will be lost if they're in a burnt stage. Okay. You would think for the life of me, I would have found a garlic press sitting somewhere here. Oh, there it is, hiding. Okay. This recipe is also calling for, so we're going to go down the list. You've got chopped white onions, garlic, celery, red potatoes. It's for small red. This would actually be more of a medium-sized red, so I'd say 2 of these. I'm going to give you about what you need, or 1 russet potato. Peeling is optional. If your russet is fairly fresh, you're going to have no problem having it in it. But if it's a little bit on maybe it's been in the cabinet for a while, sort of freshness, probably peel it first. Either way, that's why I do like to get this because it's such a fine peel to begin with. So there's my potatoes, 2 stalks of finely chopped celery. I'm going to hold on as I do this. I forgot to add my garlic, so give me 1 second here. Here's the celery. There's my corn. 2 cups of broth, again, veggie or chicken, and 2 cups of milk. In this case, if you are dealing with someone that all of these recipes have been, could be vegan. I mean, surely vegetarian could be vegan depending on what kind of milk you're using. That's getting a little smoky for that. We're going to have the celery. And the corn. Oh. If you read the recipe as I'm doing this, I think sometimes being on a camera makes it a little bit harder. Add the potato, cover in steam, and add most of the corn. Well, we're just going to do the whole thing. And namely because, as well, you can puree this soup. Some of the reason for leaving some of the corn out, if you choose to, is to have some corn kernels at the end. But if you can, well, that's kind of what we're doing. All right. So this is going to cook for a few minutes. And Gabriel, since we're counting down, the only other things I would point out on this, green onions for garlic, or excuse me, for garnish at the end. Again, once these vegetables are reasonably cooked, then you're going to add your broth and you're going to cook them until the knife goes through the potato. Something you can just kind of put on the back burner. But again, what I liked about having all of these recipes is that every bit of this fruit, or excuse me, every bit of these vegetables could come from the farmer's market. And it's just so much more fun to cook fresh when you can, that it's kind of nice. Okay. We're going to do that again. Milk can be regular milk or almond milk in this case. Paprika. If you've never had a chance to try smoked paprika, it makes such a difference in the flavor. But spices in, if you don't have a big, my skylight, if you don't have a big stash of spices right now, I recommend utilizing places like, the reason being, you're going to run into a recipe that calls for garam masala. And you're going to go to King's and it's going to be $8.99 for this little, half-ounce jar. And you're thinking, I'll never use this again. But what you can do at Sprouts is you can buy the amount you need. You can buy half a teaspoon at a time, a teaspoon at a time. If you really love it, go back and buy a bigger amount, but it's fresher. You're going to have better turnover, and you're going to have just what you need. Okay, so a big part of food waste is that we just buy too much. So where can we learn to kind of buy less to actually still be able to cook the way we like and turn out great products? Okay, I'm going to turn this down, but just so I can show one last thing.
And while Monica gets ready there, if anyone has some questions, we'll get those ready. Monica will have you finish up, and then I know Freddie has one question, and we'll see if anyone else does.
All right, go ahead.
You ready for that question? So Freddie was wondering, do you garnish with cooked corn rather than fresh?
You can garnish with fresh in this case, namely because, again, this is kind of going with the cold soup. Because it's a garnish, it's not critical, but cooked would be fine. But in this case, it's fresh, because that's what you're using is the fresh. All right. Anybody else? Questions? Okay, last trick. Oftentimes it will call out for using a blender, to put soup in a blender. And just the sheer logistics of dealing with hot broth and everything else into a large blender makes little to no sense. But you will get your finest puree. Absolutely, you can, puree, I swear, celery hearts or fennel, cooked fennel, raw fennel. I love stick blenders. And I really like the kind that they separate so that when you are done with it, you can put it in the dishwasher. Again, probably my most favorite tool of the kitchen is the dishwasher. In this case, the beauty of having a hand blender is that you can puree your soups right in their container. And just so you see, there's our cooked zucchini. You can kind of see that. I was just tasting it because I do want to make sure that the vegetables are cooked. The only hindrance to getting things really smooth is if the vegetables aren't completely cooked. They'll be a little less. You just won't have as smooth a product. It's nothing bad, just a little less. So here, let's do that. And I'm just going to do a quick blender. I like stick blenders for a lot of reasons. You can make great milkshakes with stick blenders. A lot less mess.
While Monica's blending that up, I'll just do our closing remarks since we're just past 12 o'clock.
All right.
Monica will come back to the last. This workshop, just want to thank everyone so much for joining us. Frank, with Colorado, thanks again for helping put this on. Just want to let you know about our next program is going to be on Tuesday, July 14th, 1 o'clock. That's lavender, not just for hand cream is the title. We're going to explore lavender for drinks, desserts, different food. We have 2 other programs coming later in the month, so we hope you can join us for those, and you should see the information through email. If you would like a copy of the recording today, please let me know, and we will get that to you. And everyone should have the recipe list, and we hope you can try some of these soups this summer. So thanks so much again. Monica, I'll hand it back off to you before we
All right.
finish
So
up.
before we're doing anything, you just get an idea, pardon me, I can do this right, of the amount of smoothness that you can get to this. And again, if I tap there and puree it, it will get completely smooth. And it's from this point, then you're going to add the, I'm looking at the corn recipe. And until smooth, you're going to add buttermilk. Again, buttermilk. Hello. I'm not broken. We've got buttermilk, or you could use yogurt. plain yogurt, salt, champagne vinegar. The vinegars, again, I'll say this for any vinegar, definitely don't stop if you don't have exactly what a recipe is calling out for. And my champagne vinegar, I think, is going to show that. I found them, champagne sometimes a little harder to find. I did find it at King Soopers for this one. Whole Foods will always carry it. It's just a nicer, lighter, it's kind of like using rice vinegar. It's not as intense, not as acidic. And in this case as well, we've got the lemon zest. So I've got my little bit of lemon zest. And I guess I can do this. And then I've got the champagne vinegar on that. That's just going to be smoothed out. Then you're going to let it chill. On some of these as well, 15 minutes for room temperature, again, not critical, but it's nice if you were going to just serve it at that point. It's just that you didn't want to have to reheat it. A lot of things, just the gazpacho especially, nicer flavor after a day or two even.